Okay, there's going to be some people straggling in a little late, so I'm just going to get started for you guys that showed up on time. Just a quick show of hands. This is a lecture that I did at Cal State LA like 2 weeks ago or so, and it was 2.5 hours, so I try to condense it as much as I can, but I do want to make sure you guys get as much information as possible. Does anybody have to go like right at 6:30?
No, I have to leave early, but not
Leave early?
necessarily.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to get through as much stuff as we possibly can. Just to preface what we're doing, we do have CBD products for sale later. So if you're interested in any of the products, they're all available up at the front desk. So before on your way out, stop at the front desk and they'll give you all the information about the products, how much they cost, all the whole nine. And hopefully you'll learn some of what to do with them and how to use them in your daily lives. Okay? For anybody that needs to leave early, I'm going to probably I'll for sure try to be done by 7:15. Is that okay with everybody? All right, just to preface that. If you have to go, I totally understand though, okay? Thank you to my mama for making food tonight. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Yeah. I'm real big, I love being able to, provide people with a meal and, hopefully we're gonna learn some cool stuff about some cannabis stuff today. There is a huge movement that's turning to plant-based medicine right now. I don't know if you guys are aware of some of the stuff that's going on in the media right now. We're going to hit on some of that. I'm also real big on stats, so we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's just happening right now in healthcare before we start talking about some of the cannabis stuff. There's a lot of history that we're going to talk about briefly, but I'm more interested in some of the science and the clinical applications for the everyday human today. So we're going to get into a lot of different stuff today. Some of it might challenge some of the things that you've been taught or believed your entire lives. A lot of this stuff is new research. But a lot of it's just historically things that we're going to kind of bring to light today that are very, very deeply rooted in stigma. And that's hopefully something that we're going to break down today, is a lot of the stigma that's behind cannabis and plant-based medicine in general. We do a lot of different talks here at our office. This is probably the 5th or 6th time we've done this particular CBD workshop. So it's my honor to be able to deliver this to you guys. I know some of you guys have heard the workshop and to some degree already, so this will be a nice review for some of you. But there's definitely some new stuff that we'll make sure that we touch on today, because this is a very, very changing field. There's a lot of things that are changing on a day-to-day basis. There's new laws that are coming up, new policies that come up very, very frequently on the topic of CBD and hemp and cannabis. So we'll kind of update you on some of the stuff that's going on, but especially here in California, now that it's legal, we want to make sure people have good information and feel comfortable and empowered to use this as medicine and not just as people getting high and recreational purposes. Okay? So, first thing I want to ask you guys is just who's in your corner in general, right? When we talk about boxers, when we talk about different types of athletes, I posted something on Instagram the other day that just said that every good basketball player, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they both had Phil Jackson in their corner, right? They had these elite level athletes all have a mentor. They all have a coach. They all have somebody that's in their corner, backing them up, making sure that they're trying their best, that strategically they're playing their cards right. Ultimately, it's up to Floyd, it's up to the person in the game to make sure that you're playing to the game to 100% of your ability. But it's up to the corner to make sure that you're living in a way that's not getting, you're not getting cheated by the other guy, you're not getting cheated by a ref, or, you're making sure that you're getting the most out of your athlete. Okay, so the same way that I look at pro athletes, sometimes I want to look at the everyday human being and say, hey, we need to make sure that these people all have somebody in their corner that's fighting for them. All right, and if it's fighting for your health, if it's fighting for your rights as parents to do what your beliefs are with your kids and to be educated properly on how you should be taking care of your children and how we should be taking care of even our grandparents and our spouses, right? We need somebody and people to be empowered to go out and do the stuff that's a little bit, against the grain sometimes. So make sure that we have good people in your corner. These are my corner. These are my little two brothers. Okay, I come from a family that's very, very medically oriented. Okay, I'm a chiropractor now, but my mom's a pharmacist. My little brother's he's a medical school student right now at Stony Brook in New York, and my other brother's a stem cell researcher. All right, so we're very, very we came up in a very medically oriented mindset, but at the same time, we always had this. Okay, we knew that the power that made the body heals the body. Okay, there's a certain amount of life force, right? One sperm, one egg met and made 37 trillion harmoniously functioning cells, right? That are capable of producing more healing in you and also capable of producing more life. So we need to make sure that you're releasing this power. We have to get your body living congruently to how you were designed to eat, how you were designed to move, how you were designed to exercise, how you were designed to express maximum health. And when we can play by the rules to a certain degree, you're going to express the most health, right? But as we start to get poisoned and we continue to subdue our bodies with poisons in all the different aspects of our lives, and the biggest poison right now that we're going to talk about in a second is technology, right? How many of us have stress that nobody has ever had before because of technology, right? So some of us, we run our entire businesses on it. So something that we're going to talk about tonight, we got to make sure that we're eliminating some of the toxins. CBD is a great thing, and we're going to talk about all the wonderful benefits for it. But CBD is not an end-all, cure-all by any means. It has to come with congruency in your lifestyle as well. All right, and it's a perfect fit of what we do here as chiropractors, and a perfect fit of what plant-based medicine natural practitioners are doing. Okay, even Harvard Medical School doctors understand this concept. All right. The wisdom of the body is responsible for 90% of the hope for patients to recover. The body is a super wisdom, right? Innate intelligence, if you will, what we would call it, in favor of life rather than death. This power is what we depend on for healing, right? This is what we need to do to heal. And doctors are responsible. All doctors are responsible for educating their patients on this. Okay, how many of you have been to a doctor, a medical doctor, and spent maybe 5 minutes with them that they've tried to diagnose your entire life from a piece of paper and maybe one conversation, right? So it's really difficult because they've got a lot of people they have to see, and I understand that the 5 minutes, is valuable for you. But if the doctor is not educating you thoroughly on what's going on in your body, whether it's cancer or whether it's a stubbed toe, right? You need to be educated on what your body's doing to heal, not just what drugs and what supplements are going to cover it up. All right, so this is something we want to do. We want to get to the cause of why people aren't healing properly. I think it's because the human species, we've lost our vibrational tone. Okay, we've lost sync with our earth. Right, we're cutting down the forests. People don't we wear shoes all day. People need to be getting their feet in the dirt. Grounding is a huge thing right now. Vibrating on the earth's frequency. There's all these new things that are coming out that discuss how the earth has vibration. Trees have vibration. These different substances that you put, crystals, other things, they have vibration to them. And that healing power that's within that can be very, very, very therapeutic. All right, it doesn't have to always come from pharmaceutical pills and drugs and surgeries necessarily.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we take photos of the screens?
Yeah, so if you guys want to take photos, please. I can't give this presentation out. So if you want to take photos, by all means, please. If you at the end have photo or questions or anything that you want to do, please feel free to ask me. I'll go back to some slides. Okay. Thanks, Lydia.
No worries.
Okay. So I want to introduce this concept of Saludo Genesis to you. So how many of you guys have heard this term before? Never? Okay, so Saludo Genesis is basically a way of approaching healthcare. It's a way of approaching the human body that focuses on factors that support health and well-being as opposed to what just causes disease. So there's the opposite of this is pathogenesis. Right? Pathogenesis is when when we're looking at what is causing the disease, what is causing the sickness, and then how do we respond reactively to that. Saludo Genesis focuses on what we're doing to prevent you from ever getting sick, to honor the body's physiological processes that are happening at every second of every day, and how do we keep those in motion for as long as possible so you don't develop any illnesses in the first place. Does that make sense to everybody? So this is a new term. I want people to understand this. Some chiropractors name their practice Saludo Genesis because this is the approach that we're trying to take into healthcare, and this is what new doctors are changing the healthcare field with. Is this new approach, and medical doctors are switching over to functional medicine. A lot of them are because they're starting to realize and understand this process. All right. So I just want to illustrate this power that made the body, that really truly heals the body. Okay. These are 2 packages of breast milk. Okay. So the one on the top here is when the baby is perfectly healthy, right? And there's no symptoms, there's no illness, they're not having a fever, they're not having any symptoms, right? The milk is nice and clear and white, right? But this one here, right? There's a areolar lingual reflex that when the baby starts suckling on the mom's nipple, the brain knows exactly what antibodies to start putting into the milk and the immunoglobulins that need to go in there, and now it comes out this pasty yellow stuff. Okay? So there is something innate and important about the human touch, about the contact between the nerves and the brain, right? That's allowing the sensory information to get to the brain that ultimately tells the body what it needs to produce. All right? So this is something that's really powerful. Most people,
a lot of ladies don't even breastfeed anymore, or they pump, they use formula, and all kinds of people are getting really, there's a lot of kids that are really sick nowadays. We'll talk about that too. But this is something that we want to make sure that you guys understand. These are just a few stats. So as some of you guys have seen this slide before, but as far as healthcare quality, access, efficiency, and equity goes, the United States comes in dead last in healthcare. Okay, and this is from 2014, and the new research that I just read, I think we were 44th out of 45 industrialized nations in healthcare this year. All right, that's terrible. All right, if we were the LA Lakers or the Angels, which we were just talking about earlier, the Angels, we kind of sucked again this year. But what happens when your team comes in last every year, or we lose every year? What happens, right? The coaches get fired, the players get fired, the players get traded away, the GM gets fired. We move and we shift to a new regime of people to try to run and fix this process. Not much has changed, right? We keep coming in last, and this is a problem. 400,000 people a year die because of preventable deaths because of high-risk medical procedures, right? And high risk can be ibuprofen. You take too much ibuprofen, it'll be your last headache, right? You never heard anybody, we're talking about nobody has ever died because of a marijuana overdose. Or, I'm going to try not to say that term either, but cannabis overdose, right? But seriously, so this is something that we need to change. We also pay the most for it, right? So you get the crappiest healthcare and you pay the most for it, and the system that we're in is the most high-risk system we could possibly have, right? So we need to change. There has to be a shift in the understanding of the population on how their health and how their body actually works. And the dependency on a medical doctor, or the dependency on a healthcare practitioner, now changes and the role shifts to you. It's your responsibility to make sure that your body's healthy. It's your responsibility to make sure that your kids are healthy, right? There's no vaccine, there's no shot, there's no pill, there's no surgery that's going to make your kid healthier, okay, unless you play by the rules, right? We have to start playing by the rules better. All right, I don't know if you guys knew this, but did you guys know they charge you $40 to touch your baby skin to skin after a C-section delivery? And it's on the insurance. So this is probably adding to that big number of healthcare costs that people are establishing, but this is just an example of something people don't even know what they're paying for when they go to the hospital, right? You get this big bill, and I know they didn't ask you, they probably asked you, hey, do you want to hold your baby? They didn't tell you it's going to cost you $40, right? So I think that's ridiculous. How many of you guys used to see these commercials all the time on everywhere? Every football Saturday, Sunday. I love football. I watch this commercial probably every other 30 minutes, right, on a Sunday or Saturday. Okay. Have you guys noticed in the last 2 years there's no more of these commercials on TV?
Why?
Because of this. They know that it causes skin cancer now. Melanoma, malignant melanoma. The funny thing is, I remember seeing this, and it was this ad, and then the next ad was, if you or a loved one been hurt by Cialis, Viagra, or Levitra, call us, right? This is the world we live in. You are marketed to death by the pharmaceutical company. My buddy, I tell the story all the time, but my buddy was from Germany, and when we were in college, we were just sitting around the fire, hanging out, having beers, and somebody made a joke about Viagra, right? He didn't get it, because in Germany, you can't advertise drugs on television. The only place where they're going to see this ad is if you watch an American television station, right? So this is something that in America we are programmed, we are accustomed to seeing this kind of stuff. So when you're marketed to death by Viagra, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Doritos, Hot Cheetos, right? All of these things are just things that we get used to seeing for such a long time that it just becomes normal, right? It's normal for somebody to have like Humira, where it's this one drug is the cure for all these autoimmune diseases, right? And they want you to, it's just silly that you would call, you're going to call your doctor to ask about the drug that you're supposed to take. It just doesn't make sense about why this process is the way it is, except for that there's a lot of money involved, okay? But here's probably the best example of why the healthcare system is the way it is. Okay, this is what Medicare, right? That's something that eventually some of you are on it, but one day we're all going to hopefully reap the benefits of Medicare that we paid in our taxes and things for years and years and years. But Medicare does not cover maintenance care, right? And this is how they define maintenance care. Maintenance therapy includes services that seek to prevent disease, promote health, or prolong and enhance the quality of life, maintain or prevent deterioration of a chronic condition. So basically, they're saying that they're not going to pay for anything that's going to prevent you from getting sick. right? This is the problem. This is the issue, is that there is the system needs to change. It can't just be that we try to cover it up with more drugs or more surgeries. There isn't another pill that's going to save us. There has to be an inside out, above down philosophy that we start to change the world with, okay? And that's what I'm here to do. Hopefully we start to unravel this a little bit with some of the CBD and some of the other natural therapies that we're doing here, okay? Now, this has been the progression that we've seen, right? We've gone from moving, right? Man that had to move, that had to hunt, that had to do these things, hunter-gatherers, and now we sit at a desk all day, okay? And even worse, now we're hunched over on a tablet or a cell phone for most of the day. Okay, how many of you spend at least 3 or 4 hours on your phone? Right? Okay, so this is something that nobody in the history of mankind has ever dealt with. Nobody's ever dealt with this type of stress on your neck and on your system. So we need to make sure we change it. And equally as fast, look how fast the technology's developed. Do you guys remember having these pagers and these big old freaking phones? I remember I had this phone until the second year at college. And, you know, so some of these, it just goes to show, and the cool thing is that even in cannabis science and in neuroscience, the amount of progression of knowledge that we've accumulated in the last 40 years is about it's pretty equivalent to the amount of tech. Like if you had gone back to the pager days and said that you're going to have an iPhone that can see your face and unlock the phone, I would have told you you're crazy, right? So there's a progression of science, and we need to realize and to grasp and take advantage of the fact that there's really, really good progressive research now. Okay, and truly the first step to making sure that we change this is empowering you to see the other alternative. Okay, and that's what we're going to do tonight. All right, we're going to make sure that you guys understand that this is not just because people want to get stoned. All right, that's the truth. It's recreational because the government's called it recreational. Right. But the reason that this is happening is because there have been thousands of accounts of people benefiting from the medicinal aspects of cannabis. All right, and it's amazing. There's people who have had to move from Texas, from Alabama, from some of these states in the South that it's still, you go to jail for years and years and years if you got pulled over with a little, nug in your car, right? But people have moved from these places to Colorado, California, in order to get the therapy that they need, and then their testimonial is amazing. All right, if you go look at Charlotte's Web or some of the old school ones, but just every day there's more research. I think there's the stat is there's been a paper done on cannabis. I think there's one paper written for the last 10 years, every single day, the equivalent. So there's a ton of research on this, more than a lot of other topics, more than any other drug, that's for sure. All right, so we want to make sure that we're kind of embracing this research. Again, the DEA has even said nobody has ever passed away from this. No one's ever overdosed on drugs. How many times have we heard about drunk driving, about alcohol abuse, illegal drug abuse, right? And caffeine. These are things that kill people. People die more of water, overdosing on water than cannabis, right? So this is something, this is a plant, you guys, and we're going to talk about exactly why, people have gotten the bad stigma it has. This is just to illustrate that there's been centuries, millenniums of people using cannabis in different types of preparations for the medicinal purposes. Okay, in China they've used it in India, even in the Greek philosophy they used to use cannabis preparations. Okay, and then even so much as Thomas Jefferson, a lot of the colonial times, hemp was a huge cash crop. It was a raw material that they used for goods. Right, used to be able to pay your taxes in hemp. George Washington had a huge hemp farm, right? So this used to be a mainstay in American culture. But for some reason, and we're going to talk about it, it changed, right? And there was a lot of political reasoning behind it and a lot of money involved in it. Okay, now, just to kind of clear the air a little bit, some of you guys are aware of this, but we'll talk about it briefly as a review. When we talk about, there's two words that you'll hear in the space. It's cannabis, marijuana, and hemp. All right, so marijuana is a word that we're not going to use anymore because it's just racist. All right, it's the same reason we don't say other words that you guys know you're not supposed to say. All right, it's Maria and Juana, and they made it a word. So it's cannabis, you guys. And when they talk about cannabis, there's different strains, obviously, but the two main strains, there's indica, cannabis indica sativa, and then there's hemp, which by definition is just the stalks, the stems, the leaves, everything but the bud. Okay, and the bud is usually what generally people would consider marijuana, right? Now, that said, what the government has termed hemp is anything that's below 0.3% THC per gram volume. Okay, so if it's below 0.3% THC, we're going to get into THC CBD in a second. But as long as it's 3 or below, it qualifies as hemp. All right, and then it just becomes whether it's from industrial hemp or whether it's from this bud hemp. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Kenna? Okay, we'll get into, I'm sure it'll make a little bit more sense here. So again, hemp is going to be anything less than 0.3% THC. Marijuana, what we consider, can contain CBD. A lot of the times it doesn't contain a whole lot of CBD, but there's definitely some strains that are high in it. And then definitely it's got a lot of THC in it. Okay, and THC is that psychoactive molecule that we think of that makes you high or stoned. And then CBD is completely non-psychoactive. Can't get you high, can't get you stoned. Does that make sense? So that said, there's a lot of many different uses of hemp. All right, from food products that we're going to talk mostly about tonight, different oils and different tincture preparations. You can derive a lot of essential oils from the hemp plant. There's different types of livestock feed that they used to use, right? Where cows and chickens and pigs used to eat hemp feed. So when you would consume those materials, you would get a certain amount of cannabinoids back in the day. And then not many people know this, but did you know Henry Ford created an entire version of the Model T out of hemp? Right? So it was powered by hemp biofuel, hemp ethanol, and it was 10 times stronger than steel, the hemp plastic was. Right? So this is what happened to this. Right? This tech is still being used. I'm pretty sure BMW still uses a version of the hemp plastic in their cars. Right? So there's something to be said about using the hemp for plastic for strong material. Right? We used to use this as a mainstay in the pharmacopoeia as well. So pharmacists, doctors, they used to prescribe cannabis to people, right? So this is a cannabis indica extract. But what happened is the paper industry took over, the timber industry took over. There are a lot of people who were invested in nylon, right? But this whole collaboration of people up at the top kind of drove us away from using cannabis, right? They wanted to, the timber industry was huge. Making sure that there was plastic made was huge. And even bigger, the pharmaceutical drug, synthetic drug industry started to really pick up. All right, so all of these investors, you have to remember, in any business, any marketing scenario that you're a part of today, there are a lot of investors involved. And those people at the very top have to make their investors happy. All right, I was reading an article the other day that talked about a drug CEO that said that it's my moral responsibility and my moral obligation to charge the people as much as I possibly can for their pharmaceutical drugs because of the investors. They need to make sure that the investors are getting what they want and what they need. All right, so we need to make sure that we start changing this kind of stuff. Henry Anslinger was the guy that kind of made it hard in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics that cannabis was this illegal marijuana drug. Okay, so we went from it being a coated pill extract here in this jar to reefer madness, right? And I'm just going to click through some of this real quick, but smoking weed turns Mexican into wild beasts. Like, this is the kind of propaganda that they were spreading. Reefer makes the darkies think they're as good as white men. This is just blatant racism, right? This is the stuff that they used to tell people. Okay, so this is the problem, is that there's been deeply rooted stigma, and we created an entire word to promote the propaganda of racism in it. All right, so we need to subtract ourselves from this side of cannabis and what we've always known as this evil weed, and return it to the plant-based medicine and to the healthy medicine that it is. All right. In 1937, there was a tax act that basically outlawed it in all the United States, and by 1971, it was basically deforested across the world. All right, and there's a big problem in that in itself, because deforestation, we know that hemp has a huge ability to absorb carbon dioxide. Okay, so according to Hemp Global Solutions, each ton of hemp grown represents 1.63 tons of CO2 absorption, which ultimately gets turned into oxygen, correct? So according to this, a 40-year-old tree that has only absorbs 1 ton of CO2 in its entire lifetime. And it takes 40 years to grow back the tree, right? So if we could use hemp and cut down a hemp field and it grows back in 6 months, right? This is a huge reason. I mean, imagine you guys, like, whether you believe in global warming or not, if I cut out the top half of your lung lobe today, would we all agree that your oxygen carrying capacity goes down significantly? That's what we did. We deforested an entire plant that was basically on every single continent, everywhere, right? And now we swipe that out. There's no more CO2 being absorbed by hemp. Now we have a lot of different issues, okay? And it's led to a lot of other issues that we won't get into tonight. All right. Now, you can't read the top of this, but this is a quote by Jack Herer, one of the huge cannabis freedom advocates in the day. But basically, he's talking about how if we just took hemp, we could make so many things. We would be able to change the world. We'd be able to revive a lot of the issues that we have with pollution just by using hemp. All right, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to turn this back into green revolution. Okay, and this is why you guys are seeing so much of this. They're hopefully voting on a bill pretty soon, and I think Sam can attest to this. The hemp is going to be legal to grow in the United States commercially, so we'll be able to use it for fiber, for shirts, for cotton, for linens, and for clothes, and for biofuel. Hopefully again. Okay, so this is the direction things are going. So a lot of hemp stocks are also going up too, but a lot of them are not doing so well. So again, the amount of plastic that we waste a year. How many of you guys have heard about the straw thing? Right?
Sure.
The restaurants aren't allowed to give straws out anymore. If they were just hemp straws, it's biodegradable. It goes back into the earth the same way. It turns into dirt, basically. All right. So this is something that we need to just change our understanding of why. Why do we do it this way? Why do we always think that this is the right way to do it? There's different ways, and I would argue there's a lot better ways than what we're doing now. Okay. Now this is really what we're here to talk about tonight. So they've found, I think, over 650 different active ingredients in the cannabis plant. CBD and THC are probably the two most well-researched. And CBD is the king of all because they've just seen how many different effects that it has. And we'll talk about exactly why that is, but there's so many different, think about this. Antibacterial inhibits cancer cell growth, neuroprotective, bone growth, reduces seizures, blood sugar, immune system, inflammation, artery blockage, vomiting, anxiety. How many drugs can you think of that are just for one of these, right? We take antibiotics, you take chemo, you take different types of nerve blockers and things like that, right? If we just use CBD as a universal drug, that sucks for the pharmaceutical industry, right? They're not going to sell anything. The pills are obsolete, basically, right? If they actually started to use CBD for what its potential is, all right? So we have to understand that there is a huge financial incentive for there to continue to be more drugs put on people and for people to continue to think that they need drugs. That's the biggest problem, right? Is you don't get healthy because you take more drugs, right? No drug, you don't have pain because of a deficiency in ibuprofen, right? That's not the issue. Okay, so again, THC is the psychoactive molecule. CBD is the non-psychoactive molecule. Okay, so this is a little funny cartoon, but there's different ways to consume THC and CBD. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of those. There's vaporizers. A lot of people inhale it and smoke it. There's even suppositories that people will use for different types of reasons. Skin lotions, tinctures, under the tongue stuff, hair products, skin products, you name it. They'll put CBD in it because
transdermal patches.
Exactly. There's literally everything. There's all different types of ways that you can do CBD. CBD even comes in water nowadays, right? And so when we talk about the different effects that it has, some of these are overlapping, all right, but a lot of them are a little bit different, right? THC is psychoactive, CBD is more non-psychoactive. THC is a lot more sedative, so you'll kind of, like a lot of people will say that they feel very, very, very relaxed. CBD won't have that same type of effect. CBD is more of a homeostasis regulator. So that's going to be a word that we throw around a lot tonight. Homeostasis is your body's ability to maintain equilibrium, right? So when the equilibrium is right, your body is functioning at an optimal level. All the cells are getting exactly what they need. They're losing the stuff that they don't need. They're killing themselves when they know they're becoming toxic properly, right? But when that homeostasis process gets out of whack and one system's overworking way too hard, now we have a cascade of different things that have to compensate for that. When your systems start to get overused chronically, that's when we start to develop really bad symptoms that now people usually start taking drugs for, like high blood pressure, statin drugs for cholesterol, which is a whole other story. But just a lot of drugs that ultimately are a result of you not having enough cannabinoids, arguably. All right. Another thing that's interesting to understand about cannabis is that it's different when you eat it raw. It's different when you heat it up a little bit, and then it's different when it's degraded, right? So when it's starting to rot, it turns into different molecules that have different types of effects in the body. This is something that's really interesting for chiropractors. We love raw cannabis. I'm going to get into some of the things that we do to juice cannabis later. But when you juice it raw, there's no way that these molecules can become psychoactive. So when you do it raw, there's no psychoactivity. So you eat it, you put it in a juicer, but as soon as you start heating it up, put it in an oven, leave it out in the sun too long, maybe even, there's some issues that can start happening. All right, so we got to make sure that there's different specific molecules that we can target in science to make sure that we bring out the amplified effects of just CBD, just THC, just CBG, CBC. Okay, and all of these can be pinpointed for their different potent effects. And that's why there's so many different strains of cannabis that have been hybridized, because each strain has its own individual properties that can be super, super healing for a specific individual compared to another one. So it's really important that everybody needs individualized cannabis care in a way. Right. So there's another effect in the body that we call the entourage effect. So when the body receives the full constituents of what the plant was originally grown with in the field, there's an amplified effect when all the nutrients are combined. Does that make sense, Debbie? So that's 2 + 2 = 5, right? There's when you have the same if we start removing certain things. So a lot of what the drug companies are trying, and they've started making CBD drugs already. Actually, they just reclassified CBD as a Schedule 5, so it's not like a felony if you have these designer CBD drugs now that some of the drug companies are making. But what they're doing is they're isolating that CBD molecule and pressing the plant and pressing it until all they have left is this highly concentrated CBD. But that's good, but it's not perfect, because what's happening is you lose the full spectrum effect. You lose all of the other cannabinoids, terpenes, bioflavonoids, waxes, chlorophylls, everything else that comes in the plant that produces that amplified effect in the body. So that's why we really highly suggest supplementing with a full spectrum cannabis supplement, okay? And I would argue that the ones that actually come from, there's different potencies when it comes from the bud part of hemp, or if it comes from just like industrial hemp, all right? And that comes, there's a lot of debate on that. We're not gonna have that debate tonight, okay? But we'll talk about it sometime. So here's that said, there's a lot of other nutrients that occur in other plants that are very similar and that activate your cannabinoid system, similar to the way that cannabis does, but they don't necessarily get you high. They aren't cannabis. So these are all, as far as I know, these are all legal here in the United States. All right, so things like electric daisy, there's a carnival named after it here. It activates your CB2 receptors. Liverwort activates your CB1 receptors, kind of how THC does. Helichrysum is an essential oil I put on earlier today that Young Living makes, and I think doTERRA does too. It has CBG in it, which is actually indicated in multiple sclerosis. Chocolate, how many of you guys eat chocolate in the last like 40 days maybe? Chocolate is responsible for blocking one of the enzymes that naturally degrade your own cannabinoids. So it kind of boosts your own natural cannabinoid levels. Echinacea is something that I've been taking since I was a little kid. But this activates the immune receptors in your cannabinoid system. So super important that echinacea is something that we can use too. Terpenes that are in black pepper, rosemary. There's a new copaiba oil that's got these type of terpenes in it. Anything that we can do to activate these other receptors that are very similar looking to cannabis, we can supplement with your cannabis supplement to produce an amplified effect in the body. So that's something that we do here at the office. We give you the CBD supplements, but in addition to that, we also provide people with extra supplementation to boost your cannabinoid system. All right, black truffle mushrooms is another one. Kava is something that people in the Southeast Pacific have been using for years. And then rhododendron is highly used in Oriental Chinese medicine. So a lot of different things. It doesn't have to just be cannabis, right? There's a lot of different testimonials about things that have helped people with cancer, autoimmune conditions, all this other stuff. Cannabis is not an end-all, be-all, cure-all. It is just a great mechanism, and it's a great thing to do, and it's really, really simple. All right, and again, you have a whole system in your body. We're going to talk about it in a second. Here's some more terpenes. We can do a whole workshop just on the terpenes in cannabis and the different essential oils that come out of it. And again, each one of these terpenes specifically has different types of therapeutic benefits in your body, whether it be antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antifungal. All right, here's some more. We'll skip that though. Okay, so your body, the same way. How many of you guys how many of you learned about the Human Endocannabinoid System in your anatomy class growing up? Probably a fat zero.
Yeah.
Okay, because neither did I, and I just got out of school like 2 years ago, so they didn't teach us a lick of the cannabinoid system. All right, and that's really unfortunate because the research has been there for the last 50 years.
Yep.
So I don't know how we neglect an entire system in your body that we know is designed to maintain homeostasis within all the other systems. So the same way that you have a circulatory system, a respiratory system, a nervous system, digestive system, bone system, you have a cannabinoid system that produces and degrades its own cannabinoids. This receptor system is virtually in every cell in your body, except for the ones in your brainstem. And that's why nobody ever overdoses, is because the breathing respiration center in your body doesn't have cannabinoid receptors. So you don't just stop breathing because you did too much cannabis. right? You might feel like you're dying, but you're not dying. Okay? So anyways, but the ECS is something that it's really important that people forget that sometimes it's okay to forget things. Your body actually needs a certain amount of ability to forget things. Sam and I have talked about this at length with other types of medicinal therapies for plants, but your ability to forget is really important. People with PTSD, people with different types of emotional trauma have the same cyclical nervous system input and output going through their brain, and sometimes it needs that hard reset. All right, and this is something that's really effective at helping that. We want to make sure that, again, people know there's a cannabinoid receptor in virtually every cell, organ, tissue, and the other thing is it's in your nucleuses. So not only is it on the outside of your cell, it's on the inside of your cell. And it's on all the organelles, the endoplasmic reticulum, the protein ribosomes, and things that are producing proteins in your body. It's in every single organelle. So all of the functions of every cell in your body have cannabinoid input, right? So it's important that we have this. There's two main endogenous cannabinoids. One is called anandamide, and anandamide is known as the bliss molecule. So how many of you guys have heard the runner's high?
Yeah.
Runner's high, right? So and it doesn't just happen from running. This could be anything where you have like a really, really good workout, or you're moving, you're exercising, you're having physiological movement that's allowing your brain to release this neurotransmitter that is anandamide, right? And this is a really strong cannabinoid that has a lot of really good endorphin-like effects, right? The other thing is 2-AG is found in your breast milk. So the cannabinoid system is actually activating a lot of the immunoglobulins in the breast milk that ultimately goes into the baby, right? And I think I read something, the cannabinoid system starts developing in a fetus at like 12, I want to say 12 weeks, something like that, or even less, whenever the nervous system starts to develop, right? So super, super important that, I know we've always thought that cannabis is this evil weed, but I would argue that it's important your kids get a certain amount of cannabinoids, whether it's naturally or through a supplement, all right? And we'll talk about some of the deficiency syndromes that people are developing because of that. So again, this is just a lot of science that some of you guys might be interested in. These are the different types of ligands, so the different types of cannabinoids that your body produces. These are the different receptors. So classically, what people have always studied is CB1, CB2. Right, there's CB3 now, but we also know that there's all these other nuclear receptors. There's ionotropic receptors on each one of the channels that allows ions to flow through in the nervous system, in the immune system, a lot of other systems as well. There's also different type of G protein coupled receptors that signal the nucleus and tell the nucleus what type of DNA needs to be replicated, what type of protein needs to be transmitted, right? So your cannabinoid system is very intimately woven into every system you have. Does that make sense? Okay, and then there's different enzymes that help degrade the cannabinoids in your body. So again, CB1 is mostly found in your brain, central nervous system. And that's just a generalization. There's CB1 receptors all over the place. But the most densely populated ones are in your brain and your central nervous system, down your spinal cord. And then CB2 receptors are more on the immune system. So if you want to look at this, if this is a little immune cell here, the CB2 receptor is really interesting because there's what's called an autocrine response. So the T cells will actually release its own cannabinoids for itself to use. So when you're deficient in it, the cells don't have the best communication with each other or the communication with the environment to know when there's bacteria there. The other thing is in the nervous system, there's what's called a retroactive neurophysiology here. There's a retrograde neurotransmission where the second neuron here shoots cannabinoids back, the anandamide and 2-AG back into this cleft right here in this little space, and then the CB1 receptors use those cannabinoids to tell the nerve how it should be sending neurotransmitters. Right? So when we talk about things like seizure disorders, PTSD, all these things where things are firing too much, this physiology allows the body to kind of self-correct itself, right? Where it's telling it when neurotransmitters should be released, when other receptors should be activated, and when they shouldn't, right? So that's that. We're going to skip that slide. Okay. Now, so this is talking about the endogenous cannabinoids, so the ones that your body naturally produces. When we introduce CBD or THC into the picture, what it does is that these plant cannabinoids go through the cell membrane and they fight for the enzyme. And when they're fighting for your body's natural enzymes, now there's more of the natural cannabinoids that your body would normally have. Okay, so that's the current thought on what CBD is actually doing, because there's been a lot of debate in science about what exactly the CBD is doing in your cell. But that's kind of what we found. This is what I presented over at Cal State LA. So Super interesting stuff here. Again, CBD isn't necessarily fitting into the receptor site, but it's allowing your body to produce its own natural cannabinoids, which is why I think that there's so many different effects that CBD is able to benefit, because there's so many different cells that your body's using to maintain homeostasis. There's more CB1 receptors in your brain than every other neurotransmitter combined.
Right.
Fun fact. Okay? But all these different areas of your brain that regulate different types of movements, your brain controls everything. Your brain is the central master system. We need to make sure that we're supplying it with the amount of nutrients that it needs. I want you guys to start to lead tonight knowing that your cannabinoid system needs to be supplemented like every other system that you would take. If you take turmeric, if you take collagen, if you take vitamin D for your bones, if you take calcium for your bones, you need to support your cannabinoid system the same way. Okay, we're going to get into some of the ways to do that today. Okay. So these are just an example of all the different homeostatic regulatory systems, from the amount of insulin that you produce to the amount of thyroid hormone that you produce, to your body's ability to regulate body temperature when it gets cold outside, or when it's really friggin' hot like it was today. Okay, and then this one here is probably the most interesting one to me, is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal cortical axis, which is your body's stress response. Right? Your body's ability to adapt to stress is regulated by a cannabinoid system. It has cannabinoid system influence. Okay, so all these other systems are super important. Cell signaling is also important too. But let's talk about this new thing that people are defining as clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. All right, so when you have, it's the same way that if you had scurvy, right? Scurvy is the result of a vitamin C deficiency, severe vitamin C deficiency, right? You guys all know scurvy?
Yeah, Pirates you are.
Pirates. I actually got a slide about that. So, but the same way that if you didn't have vitamin C, you would get scurvy, we're finding that when you don't have enough cannabinoids in your system chronically, you start to develop these symptoms, okay? And probably the four most common ones that I have capitalized here are migraines, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome that usually gets triggered by some type of anxious stimuli, whether it's stress or whether it's just uncertainty in something you're doing. And fibromyalgia is a huge one right now, right? The people, I don't know, some of you probably in this room have been told that you have fibromyalgia, and the doctors just think you're nuts, right? Because nothing works, none of the tests come back positive, they're not looking for the right thing, right? So this is something we need to make sure that people understand. If you don't have cannabinoids, you will show the effects of a deficient cannabinoid syndrome, or a deficient cannabinoid system, all right? And some of these other things, especially in children, cystic fibrosis, neonatal failure to thrive in the NICU a lot of the times, different types of brachial plexopathies where you get numbness and tingling in your shoulder and your arms, okay? Different types of colic in babies, glaucoma, dysmenorrhea is a huge one, endometriosis falls into that category as well, and different types of PTSD and bipolar diseases, brain disorders, different things. And this is not a full, complete list by any means, but it's just to show that there's really important nutrition that needs to come from cannabis, all right? And we have to supplement if you're not getting enough of it. There's also things about it being antioxidant, neuroprotectant. I'm going to show you guys the patent later, but the government actually has a patent on this, the fact that this all works. So metabolic syndrome due to anti-inflammatory benefits, heart, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. Think about this again, you guys. How many drugs are specifically designed? There's a whole profession of cardiovascular care just designed for statin drugs and just for high blood pressure medication, all this stuff. What happens when we eliminate that with just eating a plant every day, right? That becomes a huge problem for the system, okay? The other thing too is neurological conditions. We've seen a lot of people with Parkinson's have some really interesting benefits from using cannabinoid supplements here. Alzheimer's is a huge one that we're going to talk about in a little bit too. And then multiple sclerosis is another big one where there's an immune response that's happening. If we can shut your immune system off with proper supplementation, your body starts to go back to normal physiology again. Okay, now, something I hope my cousin's watching somewhere. He's the trainer for the Washington Redskins, but I wanted to make sure I touched on this tonight. Concussions is a huge issue right now, and I'm actually doing a workshop in 2 weeks on concussions and the different ways to diagnose, find, detect, and prevent, ideally, and kind of make sure that you're managing. If you have had one, I've had a couple at least, and just the way that we benefit people that have had a concussion or a head injury and get them back to normal functioning and try to get their system back so that they're not at risk to have another brain injury. Because there's this thing called, what we would call concussion roulette, where if you get a second concussion after you've had one, it can be fatal. All right, and no kid. I don't want anybody's kid to ever have to go through that, or anybody to ever go through that. All right, so concussions is a huge injury, but again, it's because your brain controls freaking everything, right? So when we talk about CBD being able to help prevent damage or to be neuroprotective against this trauma and against this inflammation that happens in the brain sometimes, this is a huge field that's going to blow up onto the scene. I know it in a few years in all of sports, not just the NFL. Okay, hockey is another big one. Soccer is another big one too. Okay, I know the kids can't do headers anymore in AYSO because of this, right? So this is something, again, once we break the stigma down, then we can start talking about children, okay? But this is the first thing. I think it's got to start with people who know the importance of taking care of the brain, taking care of their head injuries. And there's, again, government patents that talk about how CBD is neuroprotective. So this is something that we know, at least at the very top, that's working for people, all right? This is Martellus Bennett, one of our buddy's patients. He threw this quote in for us that there's times a year where your body just hurts so bad, you want to be popping pills all the time. Some of the NFL players get it. Some of these guys get it. Like Tony Romo broke his back and then went back into the game a year later and broke his back on the first time he got tackled. Okay? The drugs do not heal you. The drugs just allow your body to get into a nice state where it's comfortable, and hopefully they just pray it heals itself. All right? We have to do things proactively to get your body healing again. All right? But the truth is that God made weed. Weed is a natural thing. Cannabis is a natural thing that grows on the earth, and it's there's all kinds of different uses for it, like we talked about. Okay, but these are the kind of people that we need to kind of be advocates for us. Okay, another thing, my brother does stem cell research. We've had some cool conversations about this, but we know that the endocannabinoid system is indicative in stem cell biology. So the way that stem cells are able to regenerate into very specific tissues, there's a cannabinoid impact there, a cannabinoid influence. So it's something that we need to make sure that we take into account. Neuroregeneration is another big thing. How many of us were taught at some point that once you start destroying your brain cells, that you're pretty much, that it's all screwed up, you're not going to be able...
And that's it.
Right. So that's just not as true anymore, right? We're finding that there's a lot more things that we can do to help regenerate these brain cells and to help heal the brain. CBD is one of those. They actually found that THC doesn't really have that same effect. So again, it's very important that we get specific cannabinoids into your system based on what's going on in your body. All right. How many of you guys saw the Concussion movie with Will Smith? Maybe some of you. I know you guys did. But basically, they talked about how most of the people, I think they evaluated, this one says 91, but I know they did more brains. I think it was like 111 brains, and out of those 111, 110 of them had CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, where their brain is basically turned to this inflamed mush, right, because of chronic inflammation, chronic head trauma, right? So what they're also finding, is that when we can get the brain to heal faster, when we can protect these nerves from degenerating and being damaged, we extend the lifespan of these people. And I know a lot of these players have committed suicide or have had really homicidal tendencies, like Mr. Hernandez did. There's a lot of things that would change in NFL players' post-career if we were able to heal their brains while they were still playing, right? Stanford did a study that talked about endocannabinoid deficiency as a cause of Alzheimer's disorder, right? So when your brain is when developing all these plaques and tangles, when you have Alzheimer's disease, the astrocyte, I had a slide in here, I don't have it anymore, but there's this thing called an astrocyte, and basically the astrocyte's job is to clean up all the gunk in your nervous system, right? And when that astrocyte's working properly, you have maximal neuroprotective, neuroregenerative properties, right? So the other cool thing is that they're finding CBD is a great neurotransmitter, not just for the CB1 receptors and the CB2 receptors and all the other cannabinoid system receptors, but they also have certain interactions with the dopamine receptors, serotonin, GABA, and opioid receptors. So when we talk about this opioid epidemic that Dr. Bill's doing a workshop on soon, there's a huge push to use cannabinoids. Psilocybin is a big one right now. There's different types of therapies that people are doing to target these other receptors that are very, very therapeutic and kind of, again, getting your body to shut off its flow of opioids or to reset, kind of push that hard reset button on your system, okay? The other cool thing is that pets have them, right? So we actually just came out with a new pet CBD line that we'll talk about later. But pets need cannabinoids too. Dogs, cats, horses, fish, you name it. Everything has cannabinoid receptors in it, okay? So we need to supplement them the same way. Dogs don't respond as well to CB or to THC. So we have a CBD-only supplement that doesn't have any THC in it for your pets, okay? And also for people who are working for the government, teachers, people who can't test positive on a drug test for THC. All right, but we'll talk about that in a second. So now here we're just going to go through some case studies. You guys want to take pictures? This is probably a good spot to do it. In children with seizures, 81% of the cases reported in the study report decreases in convulsions following CBD, and 16% of them reported being completely seizure-free. All right, and this is, again, there's virtually no risk in using these supplements and using these therapies. Right? There's like nobody's died of CBD, but plenty of seizure medications are super dangerous if you take too many of them. Even if you take the normal amount, they can be really dangerous with really dangerous side effects. Okay. Again, they've tested this on children for safety. There's this young lady named Emily that one of our colleagues they did a study on. She was only using 9 to 10 milligrams of CBD daily, and she became seizure-free. All right, so super cool. It sometimes is just a small amount that we need to get the profound effect. Some people need way more, but again, it's a deficiency syndrome. If you're severely deficient, you're going to need a little bit more than the average person to get you back into alignment. All right. So again, CBD helps with helps heal bone fractures. They've done research about how CB1 receptors are in your bone mass and actually turn off the bone breakers. So the stuff that's breaking down bone in osteoporosis and osteopenia, it shuts those off, and then your bone's able to kind of regrow properly again. So super important there. There's a lot of stuff in with collagen too. I'm huge on collagen. I love people taking collagen. But definitely if you have bone fractures, osteoporosis, things like that, CBD can be highly beneficial for that. Did you know that CBD has been shown to help induce breast cancer cells to kill themselves?
Wow.
Right? Pretty cool. Right? This is from the Molecular Cancer Therapeutics Journal. Here's some of the physiology behind that. Is that there's two processes in your body. One is called apoptosis. The other is called autophagy. Basically, apoptosis is programmed cell death, cell suicide. So when your cell is starting to release molecules that it knows and IDs as toxic, your cell kind of goes into a self-destruct mode where it'll start to envelop itself. It protects itself so that it doesn't spread itself, right? So when this process is working properly, this cancer cell is growing in every single one of us at every second of every day, but your body's able to keep them at bay because of this process. So we need to make sure that we're facilitating this innate process that you have to make sure that you're getting the maximum amount of cancer killing in your body. All right, so super important that we work on this. A lot of the different chemotherapies and medications that people with cancer do are targeting different areas of this pathway, right? But we need to release your innate physiology either along with that. A lot of the research has shown along with that. But for those of us that aren't trying to use any type of drug, surgery, radiation, anything like that, this has to be something that you're working with, okay? We have to honor this. Again, programmed cell death and breast cancer cells, and a lot of this research has been done on breast cancer, which is probably one of the most prevalent ones. But definitely programmed cell death and crosstalk. This is another one in inhibiting the gene that's actually expressing an aggressive breast cancer cell. So again, it's a whole full spectrum effect or target that we're going after because there's so many different receptors and so many different inflammatory processes, and then ultimately your body's innate ability to kill cancer cells too. All right, another one here is talking about how it's anti-inflammatory, anti-proliferative, anti-invasive, anti-metastatic, and pro-apoptotic in most cancers. All right, this is from 2013. Right, and this is talking about cannabinoids and omega-3s. Right, so this is another reason why I highly recommend anybody that's doing the therapy with us does fish oils and other types of omega-3 krill oil, eating lots of avocados and healthy fats to make sure that you're getting the amount of omegas that you need to complement the cannabinoid system. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so it's not just about the cannabinoids. You have to incorporate some of the other stuff too. Okay, another cool thing that people are using this for is autism, and I'm going to show you guys a case study in a little bit about some of the things that we're doing with autism. But it's been a huge target, and Dr. Bill was just speaking at Autism 1 this year, and there was a guy there talking about the cannabinoid system and how kids with autism are using cannabis to have significant, profound reduction in their symptomology. All right, so it's pretty cool. A lot of it's based on the neuroinflammatory process, so being able to reduce inflammation in your body is going to really help the brain work better and heal faster in autism, whether it's because of heavy metal toxicity or because of injury. There's all kinds of different reasons why kids are getting autism nowadays. But one central mechanism of injury is neuroinflammation. So when we reduce the neuroinflammation with cannabis, autism starts to be prevented, is what this study is saying. It's pretty cool. All right, so again, talk about some of these patents that the USA has. Antioxidants and Neuroprotectants. This is from October 2003. So this has been going on for a long time, right? The patents have been out. The research is finally now just coming to the public forum. We're getting used to using this stuff on a daily basis for us. This one's phytocannabinoids, plant-based cannabinoids in the treatment of cancer. This is Otsuka Pharmaceuticals. Okay, this was from 2013. So the research is there, the patents are there. It's about us trying to make sure that the pharmaceutical company doesn't get a hold of this, because it's going to be illegal for you to grow cannabis plants, again, in your backyard, because it's unregulated. They want to be able to tax it. They want to be able to have control. I think right now, if you get the pharmaceutical Epidiolex, it's like $32,000 a year.
Ridiculous.
Right, it's ridiculous. You
It's
know,
not
we
even
can,
as effective as the full spectrum.
right. So when it's not, that's what's going to happen if the government takes over, right? So we need to make sure that we're doing things to keep it in our ballpark. Grow it in your backyard like I do. And actually, all the food tonight had ground up cannabis leaves in it. So you're welcome, everybody. Okay, so anyways.
Your stash.
Yeah. Okay, now, again, I am highly about research. Okay, so I want you all to take the information you learned tonight and go study it some more. All right, I know a little homework for you today. You can Google CBD and literally freaking anything, and you will get research about it somewhere, okay? I prefer you go on PubMed, because PubMed is kind of the government's research body, and it's got all the collected peer-reviewed articles from around the world. CBD, again, you're going to find a lot of cool stuff. So from pancreatic cancer, you name it. If there's anything that really kind of touches you here on this list, go home and do your research on it, and make sure that you're helping your body, helping your friends and family with this kind of stuff too. There is one study I wanted to touch on here, which is this one: CBDA inhibits breast cancer migration. CBDA, cannabinolic acid, is the raw form. So when you eat the cannabis raw, it has very specific nutrients that help with that benefit cancer, right? That they're showing inhibit some of the stuff. Okay. So again, raw, heated, aged. There's all different spectrums of this. You need to make sure that you're finding your right fit, okay, based on what you need. Okay, now, just to illustrate how important this is that you guys are educated on this. This is a collaboration of data from 2017, Kids on Psychological Drugs, okay, psychiatric drugs. This is a grand total of 7 million. 7 million children are on psychotropic drugs, hard drugs. The side effects of these drugs, the side effects of ADHD drugs, antidepressant, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety meds, are suicidal and homicidal tendencies, thoughts, and actions. And it says it on the label, right? So we have kids that are shooting up schools. We have people that are going completely insane, right? And we're letting them be the victim. I'm not saying they are a victim. They're getting drugged. These kids are on drugs, right? And it's coming from some guy in a white coat that's saying that the drugs are okay, and that are telling you parents and you young people that the drugs are okay, right? So what's the difference between somebody in a white coat saying you and when you are watching Scarface and Tony Montana is dealing you drugs, right? What's the difference? It's somebody that you would trust in, and you know that you're supposed to trust is giving you these medications, okay? So there has to be a shift. There has to be a change in what we're doing here, okay? And chiropractic and CBD can be a huge implicator in that. Here's some natural things. Take a picture of this slide for sure if you're interested. But natural endocannabinoid system food products that you can be eating. Okay, these are things every day that you can eat that are going to boost your cannabinoid system. Again, it doesn't have to just be CBD, doesn't have to just be THC. Okay, we have to get your cannabinoid system activated. Hemp seeds, hemp oil, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, sardines, eggs, things that are rich in omega-3s are going to boost your body's natural ability to produce anandamide. Okay? And again, some of these things you probably already eat all the time. Chocolate, different types of herbs and teas, beta-caryophyllene that you'll find in different types of spices. Echinacea is another big one, teas. And then my personal favorite one that I think I've probably, if you've seen me somewhere in this office, I've recommended to you to eat turmeric. Okay? Turmeric is probably one of the greatest, curcumin is one of the greatest anti-inflammatories. There's no, like there's very, very few side effects. Some people it irritates their gut a little bit, can kind of, get a little mixed up, but some people, it's very, very far and few between. Turmeric is so beneficial for people, okay? And it works, like they've done studies that 400 milligrams of ibuprofen is as effective as 400 milligrams of turmeric with none of the side effects. Right? So super, super important. We start using natural things. They've done a lot of studies on turmeric combined with CBD and cannabinoids, combined with different types of mushroom therapies even, to produce this amplified effect of healing in your body for all different types of conditions. Okay, some stuff that you can do to activate your system naturally, just in your daily routines. Social interaction is probably the #1 thing that nobody does anymore. Okay, I think I made this joke already, but like I was walking down the street and I literally walked into somebody because I was on my phone and he was on his phone, right? And like we had a good laugh afterwards. But that's what happens. People are looking down all the time. No one's interacting socially. It's weird if I look at you and smile and tell you how pretty you look. Right? Like that's weird nowadays. That's invasive. And in fact, you might even say it's like getting a little close to, harassment. Right? So that's the society we live in today. We have to mold ourselves around that. So social interaction is huge. Make it a point to hang out with your kids. We do a whole workshop on the vagus nerve and why social interaction is so important for that nerve. But definitely for the cannabinoid system, it's effective. Meditation, yoga, massage, acupuncture, breathing exercises, everything where you're exercising is going to boost your natural cannabinoid levels. Probably the other two most biggest times when you're going to have a huge cannabinoid release is during orgasm and when you're having a good laugh with your friends. How many of you guys have had a gut-busting laugh with your friends in the last week or two, right? Where you're like, I need a diaper and a something to breathe back to breathe in, okay? The other thing that we know activates your cannabinoid system, which is really cool, is chiropractic adjustments. When we can get your nervous system and your homeostatic regulating system functioning optimally, your cannabinoid system works better. All right, so super cool, some of the stuff, and that's why I'm very, very passionate about overlapping the two and here in our practice. Okay, but here's the other thing. Cannabis is expensive sometimes. All right, and again, because of the way that we have to derive it, the cheapest way to get cannabis is grow in your backyard. It's free. Right. Costs $20 for the little plant. Buy some nice soil, water, and in 6 months you got a giant plant that's bigger than me. Right, like that's huge. Yeah, 6 actually is the legal limit here. So in 6 weeks, people are going to buy this iPhone 10, but we have to think about what's your priority here. If you're going to spend $1,000 on a phone, can't you spend $1,000 on your body and your temple here? Like, can't you make sure that your body is functioning optimally so that down the road you don't have to have chemo and radiation and all this other stuff to make sure that you don't have to have blood pressure medication or all these other things that people are on, right? We want to start now. We have to be proactive. We have to be in that Saludo Genesis mindset where we want to prevent disease, not just wait until it happens the way that the society, the government, the Medicare system has set it up to be, right? They're not going to pay for your maintenance care. So we have to make sure that you're doing things on your own. Just because they're not going to pay for the maintenance care doesn't mean you don't do it, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we start doing this stuff. Oh crap! I hope it didn't freeze on me. Okay, let's see. There we go. Still going? Okay, good. All right, so I think we're hitting it right about 6:45, so I'm perfectly on time. So you guys, if you guys are interested, we have an online store that we have all these products available online. We have different formulas for specific reasons. So there's an introductory formula for people who are just trying to make sure that you get a little bit of CBD and different types of cannabis into your system. Okay, all of our supplements, because of legal reasons, we derive from industrial hemp, and we produce natural, below 0.3% THC supplements. So we want to make sure that people are getting the care that they need and all the stuff that they need. We also have some new stuff too that isn't on this website yet. We're still working on it. We're having some crossover, and Claudia's been gone for 3 weeks now. So we're really, Claudia, please come home wherever you are. Seriously. Okay, so go to the shop. If you call the website, or if you call the number on the website, you'll get me, Adam, or Julie, and we'll make sure that we get you hooked up with whatever you need, okay? Pet products that we have now are really cool. Want to make sure that we're taking care of your pets. Some of you guys take better care of your pets than you take care of yourselves sometimes, so let's make sure that, we get your pets taken care of, but you as well. All right, if you're interested in my ebook that I put together for all of our peeps and patients, I have a pen here. Just put an email down here and I'll send you the book, hopefully either tonight or tomorrow morning sometime. And we'll get you a lot of the information that we talked about tonight with just some things that I have in the book. There's a lot of research articles in there that you can click on and check out the research on your own. But it's just kind of something we put together so the patients are real comfortable about what they're doing with cannabis. Okay? Look for us on Facebook Live. This talk will be on Facebook, so if you want to rewatch parts of it, happy to have you go check it out again. Comment, like, share, all the fun stuff, right? And if you're interested in having this talk done somewhere, if you have an audience or anybody that you think could benefit from this talk, I'm happy to go. I've gone to Michigan, I've gone all over the place to do these types of talks. So if you're interested, I'm happy. We'll talk to you about it. Let's set you up with a sports team or your team, your corporate office, whatever it might be. We'd love to talk to them about anything, let alone just cannabis, okay? Now, little bonus stuff here. Juicing cannabis is super powerful here. No psychoactive effects again. You can mix it with a lot of different juices. You don't have to smoke it, which a lot of people are very concerned about. I would suggest not using like you can't smoke too often, but vaporizers, and there's different types of ways that you can just, yes?
When you're juicing it, you're throwing the leaves in?
You throw the leaves in. You can juice the buds too. It's just a little difficult because sometimes it gets real sticky. So you just gotta, let it dry a little bit more and then kind of get it in there. You get dry, or you could use a food processor. Just blend it, shoot it up.
Nutribullet deal, it works pretty good.
You can give it a shot. Yeah, it probably works pretty good. Okay, so something we like to do: cannabis leaves, turmeric. All right, it's powerful superfood. This is kind of tastes like taking a wheatgrass shot, but it's something that's super strong. Anti-inflammatory bomb here. If you're ever thinking about something, turmeric, cannabis leaves. Yes.
I tried to find turmeric root the other day. Where is it available?
A lot of the health food stores have them, and you can just buy it. Sprouts usually will have it. It's usually next to the ginger and the other root vegetables, the carrots and stuff, I guess. Yeah, but usually most of the health, they should have them at the health food stores. Okay, so case studies, anybody? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do 2 of them tonight. So I had a patient that had stage 4 bladder cancer. And it's it's kind of a crazy story. I'll open up a little bit. My at the same time that I had this patient, my uncle was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he passed away and didn't do the CBD therapy within I think 30 days, 90 days. This guy, he was bedridden, no appetite. He was treated with chemo and radiation before. Then he kind of got away from it. He was on vegan diet, alkaline water, so he was doing a lot of the stuff that you already would be suggested to do if you had cancer by any natural healthcare provider. And after he did our 240 milligrams of gold tube, we did 50 milligrams of the green tube. This should say green. I need to fix that. But a combination of gold and green, about 300 milligrams per day, and he's still to this day cancer-free. Okay, so it's super cool. There's a lot of really fun stuff that he's able to do. I noticed within the first 2 weeks that he was having much better appetite. He was out of bed. He was moving around, doing the stuff that he liked to do around the house again. Okay, and now he's back to basically full strength. All right, it's pretty cool. And here's another cool one. This is a 3-year-old kid that has autism. And mom described his autism as a 12 out of 10 on the autism spectrum, if you will, where it's like bouncing off the walls, no eye contact, can't climb up the stairs, isn't, just is a crazy little kid, right? He was having daily seizures. Thank you guys for coming. Check out the products if you want on the way out. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, confirmed on the EEG. He's done elimination diet and different types of stuff with dairy and gluten, trying to eliminate different types of inflammatory foods, right? So gluten, dairy, soy are very inflammatory in your system because of the glyphosate and other pesticides in it. And he had actually already gone through a stage of chiropractic care, so not that the chiropractic wasn't working, but it wasn't resolving the symptoms the way that we needed it to. And he only did about 8 to 10 milligrams of THC like that lady Zoe did, and CBD oil daily, yeah, and then in 45 days, the son went from a 12 out of 10 to a 2.
Wow.
Okay, so super cool. Mom's super excited about it. Can you imagine the change in mom and family's life when a child with autism
They
goes
stop
from
taking
that?
mushrooms.
Right, exactly. They're able to sleep again. They're able to go out on a date. They're able to build their family back together again. Okay, so this is way more than just take some weed and eat it tonight. This is something we're trying to change the world with. We're trying to get your people, whoever your tribe is, to really manifest health with natural products, okay? So something that I want to overlap a little bit is that the innate intelligence of your nervous system and the innate physiology of your cannabinoid system is intimately connected. So that's why I'm so passionate about bringing CBD to you guys and about bringing CBD to my chiropractic peeps, is because it's a connected physiology here. There has to be connection. If we adjust you, we have to put the rocket fuel on it, right? So we can make sure that you're adjusted, that you're getting maximal expression of your nervous system, but then we have to pour the good nutrition. We have to regulate your hormones. We have to make sure that you're getting the right vitamins and nutrients to promote better health and to promote healing, right? So I'm going to skip that for anybody. Nobody has to go yet, right? Okay. We talked about the vagus nerve briefly, but this is a nerve that exits the base of your skull right here at your brainstem and goes all the way down and innervates and touches every single organ in your abdomen and your thorax. Okay, so one nerve controls virtually all of this, and it's a key component in your GI motility, your body's ability to digest food, and also in body weight homeostasis, so making sure that your body weight is functioning properly. So cannabinoid receptors are in this nerve. We need to make sure that we supplement it and that your body's producing enough anandamide on a daily basis, right? Not to mention that you need to make sure that we remove pressure from up here, because this is what happens to kids nowadays, okay? If you guys have seen my Instagram, I posted 2 or 3 pictures of me adjusting babies the last couple days. Okay? I want people to see that people bring their kids to me to get adjusted. They shouldn't be scared. If a 2.5-week-old baby can get adjusted, you can get adjusted, right? And not only is it safe, but if I can maximize your health from when you're a baby until you're in the grave, you're going to have lived a much higher quality of life in that span. All right, so that's why we do this. This is why I check babies. Okay, we call this fetal extraction nowadays. This is not birth, right? Birth is when you're squatting in a tub or doing a water birth or things like that. Or back in the old day, you were in a manger, something like that, right? Okay. They all of a sudden put you on your back, then they show all these lights on you and put you into the most stress-induced environment possible, and then expect you to go through labor, which is a parasympathetic rest, digest, reproduction process. Right? It's impossible. It's physiologically impossible for your body to do recovery, repair, and regeneration if it's chronically stressed all the time. Okay? And we start kids off from birth or fetal extraction with this stress tone. Right? So that's why we check babies. But the next time we need to make sure, and again, one of the huge reasons that we do this is because of the autism risk that today's culture is seeing, right? Did you guys know that they did a study in 2014? If you had cerebellar injury at birth, right? So brainstem trauma. If you had brainstem trauma at birth, you were 36 times more likely to have autism, right? So there's something chemical that I would argue is definitely a chemical response to heavy metals and certain things that you're putting into your baby. And then there's definitely a component that comes from structural pressure, right? And if we can remove that pressure on the brainstem, if we can unsubluxate these vertebrae up here at the top and get you adjusted, we can remove a lot of this. If autism was truly a genetic disorder all the time, genetics take thousands of years to change, right? Genes take thousands of years to change. Kids want to get better, right? There would be no getting better if it was genetic, right? So we need to make sure that we have to understand the physiology and why these symptoms start to express themselves, all right? And when we can start eliminating it, that's when we're talking about gold. Okay, in 1976, there was a series of papers published that talked about the fact. This is a fact. This is what I work and live by, is that your nervous system is impacted when you have abnormal position movement of your spine. Your spine is the tail of your brain. The spinal cord is housed in an armor of 26 bones from your brainstem to your low back, right? It's the only system that's protected by bone. So we have to make sure that this spine is moving, it's lubricating. 90% of the stimulation from your spine to your brain is movement-based, right? So we have to move. The spine needs to move segmentally. Studies have shown that 50% of hyperthyroid patients have damages in their nervous system pathways. How many of you don't raise your hands, but if you take thyroid medication, Synthroid, there's a stat that if you take Synthroid for a year, you have to take Synthroid for the rest of your life because your body will stop producing thyroid hormone permanently, right? So we need to make sure that if it's a nervous system problem and it's not a deficiency in your thyroid hormone, we have to correct the nervous system. You can take all the Synthroid you want, it's never going to get better. Right? So there has to be a progression of using your innate system. The nervous system is so powerful. The capability of your nervous system is healing. And again, we talked about at the very beginning, the amount of science that we've accumulated about the nervous system, about neuroscience and how your brain actually works in the last 40 years is about the same as the progression of technology, right? So the stuff that we would have said was insane 40 years ago is now 100% fact today, all right? So this is something we have to transition our bodies into. Again, as as like a fresh doctor out of school, I like to think that I have a fresh take on things that people have been doing the same way for years and years and years and years, okay? There's a change coming, and hop on the train with me, ride the wave, okay? We know that in the journal of neuroscience, they've talked about neural connections between the nucleus solitarius tract, so right here, like the brainstem nuclei, and regulating heart rate and blood pressure. So blood pressure is something I work on with a lot of patients here at my practice. It's not because chiropractic cures blood pressure issues. It's because when you remove stress from the nervous system and you take pressure off of these areas in the brainstem, the body does it. The body heals. The body doesn't need to produce, it's not under stress tone. When does your blood pressure go up usually? When you're stressed, right? If there's a tiger in the room right here, everybody's blood pressure is they're gonna say it needs high blood pressure medication, right? So we have to make sure we're changing this stuff. Okay, now again, chiropractors, there's a reason why athletes get chiropractic, right? And in America, we have the sickest population, like I mentioned, but we try to make up this facade that because we're the best at sports in the Olympics, or the best at football, or the best at these sports, and we're always trying to strive for greatness in sports, that we have the best athletes, so we must be the sexiest and the healthiest, right? That's the issue, is that it's got to be about the common man. But if pro athletes that are always, their job is to boost their performance in every way possible, they get adjusted during the game, right? So I adjust athletes before the game, after the game, during the game, in between the games, right? To make sure that their performance and their practice and their ability to heal and recover is an optimal level. That same concept needs to be applied to every single human being on earth. Okay, I have all kinds of different people I treat, I adjust. I wish I had chiropractic when I was balling, but you know, I take care of professional dancers. I take care of people, my cross country team. I don't think any of them are in here tonight. NBA, hopefully NBA superstars one day. GSAC champion soccer players here, and my swim team. Right? I have all kinds of athletes that come in because they understand how powerful it is to have your nervous system free and to compete at an optimal level every time and be confident in their body and to feel good. Right? I just recently went over to Vanguard University and I was working with their theater program. These theater kids work their asses off every single day. They're rehearsing like 5 to 6 hours a day. Then they do 5 shows in 4 days, right, for a month straight. And they don't get any care. There's nothing in their budget that talks about health care or athletic training or anything like that. But all the Broadway shows, all those Broadway companies got a chiropractor, massage therapist, you know. So why isn't this translating to the other sports, or to the other theater programs, and to just people in general? It shouldn't just be athletes that get athletic training. It shouldn't be just athletes that get chiropractic. Everybody needs chiropractic, okay? And it's because everybody has a spine, central nervous system. If not another adjustment was given, one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, says this: if your nervous system, if we stopped doing adjustments tomorrow and there was another chiropractor on earth, does your brain and central nervous system still communicate to every single cell, organ, tissue in your body? Yes, right? So it's about that. Chiropractic is a vehicle for us to be able to express and get you to express maximal function all the time, all right? Again, here's another dance company I work with up in Hollywood. Okay, these are a lot of kids, right? So these kids are working their butts off from when they're little kids working on this. Some of them are actually famous. They got tons of Instagram likes and followers and stuff. But these are kids, like 8-year-old kids, that are going to go and dance for the next 18 years of their lives. And I hope their career lasts longer than that. But the reason why dancers' careers a lot of times are cut short is because they're not getting the care. They're not getting the tune-up. They're not recovering all the way. They get injured. And when you're injured and you can't perform, you are out. There's no like, oh, I can sub in a guy and then put you back into the game when you're ready. You're out. Right? And some of these girls, they travel from all over the country to be in Hollywood to manifest this dance career. Right? So this is something I'm real passionate about. I want to help people who need help, but either don't understand why they need the help or they just don't have the ability to get it sometimes. All right? So let's talk about some factors here. If you learn anything from tonight, this is something that you can take home. Nutrition has got to be one of the most important things that you work on. Okay? If you just did nutrition and exercise, proper rest, positive mental attitude, you're doing pretty good. But that last thing to make sure that you're getting the most out of these 4 things is maximum nervous system function. You have to have proper brain function, making sure that you're getting the most out of your body every second of every day, right? And again, we talked about the balance scale here, right? You can't be in sympathetic and parasympathetic. Like if you're in sympathetic here all the time, your body will not rest, digest, relax, and grow and develop properly. It's impossible, right? So we need to teeter your system back into the parasympathetic side. And there's a lot of different ways that we have to try to do that. Sometimes, you know, there's a lot of extra things that we need to do, okay? And again, just to illustrate this, the typical American goes through more physical, chemical, and emotional stress in 30 days today than their grandparents did in their entire lifetimes, John Hopkins, right? So the stressors that we're being put under today is astronomically more than have ever existed in the history of mankind, all right? And we're doing less and less and less on a daily basis for ourselves, right? We continue to put more stress in, and we don't ever try to remove any of it, or to remove the structural pressure at least, all right? So again, a lot of I'm a big research junkie, so we know that based on a lot of different research articles and things, that the body, when it's stressed, that sympathetic tone dominates, it also affects your immune system. So we know that the sympathetic nervous system in neuroscience is immunosuppressive. So when you're stressed and your body is chronically in a stressed state and stressed tone, your immune system cannot function at 100%, right? It's only kind of just hovering. And that's usually when people start to get sick, right? Flu season is not a season. Flu season happens when the vitamin D levels start to go because people aren't sitting out on the beach all day, right? Or at all, right? And you don't get enough sun. You're not eating enough vitamin D to boost your immune system, right? And people are under more stress than ever during school, during their new jobs, or kind of especially going towards the holiday season, right? When you got to hang out with your family, some of you, that's more stress than anything, right? So we need to do these things to reduce the stress tone, boost your body's parasympathetic nervous system, and allow it to heal properly. All right? There's lots of studies. Again, I'm huge on the brain studies. Agura did this study that talked about how when you get adjusted, it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system, it improves your heart rate, breathing rates, and your production of energy, ATP production, and enhanced brain glucose utilization, right? So adjustments change your brain. And the cool thing is this is just one adjustment. So you get adjusted once, and I know that I'm changing your life every time, right? So we need to make sure that people get this. So a lot of you are patients here already. You guys get this. You know what it feels like when you get your first adjustment. When I got my first adjustment, again, I had multiple head injuries. I got my neck adjusted, and it felt like literally someone turned a light on in my face. And I could see again. And everything was sharp. It was clear. My brain fog was gone. It was amazing. Right? And I really don't think I've ever looked back from there. But there's always better potential. There's always better work that we need to do in your spine. Okay? We know that chiropractic adjustments increase the function of your prefrontal cortex, and I talked about all those different psychotropic drugs that kids are on, right? How many of those drugs involve behavior, decision-making, memory, and attention, and all the ADHD medications? That is basically, you guys know that ADHD medication is like a synthetic version of meth, right? So we're giving our kids meth in schools. That's cool. Intelligence is huge. Just they've seen that you boost your IQ just by getting adjusted sometimes. Autonomic function, making sure that your body's non-consciously controlled systems are working well. Motor control for athletes. Processing of pain and emotional response to it. So PTSD, depression, anxiety, these different types of disorders. We can kind of push that hard reset button, get your brain to start working differently and start recommunicating things. Your brain starts to work better. Drugs aren't going to fix this problem, right? Eye movement, spatial awareness, reasoning, active problem solving, right? So intelligence, your body's ability to think, make decisions, is based on this area of your brain that we affect when we adjust you, right? So it's super important. Now we throw around this word in chiropractic called subluxation. And basically what it means is that there is a bone, there is a vertebrae, there's something along the nervous system that is causing an interference. Okay, now some people have scoliosis, some people have got spondylolisthesis, they've got different types of subluxations that are causing a lot of tension and pressure. Some of you, your subluxation happened at birth and we just aren't aware of it until we check, right? So all of these things can, there's different ways that we can get subluxation, we're talking about that, but there has to be a removing of this. We have to remove this from your system so that your body can function at its optimal potential, because it's communicating down this super highway of nerves, right? These nerves are connected to everything in your body. It's a super highway of information going up and down. Sensory information. Your body was designed with 40 times the amount of sensory receptors as you have motor. So your body is designed to sense information, take it in, process it, and then produce the proper output. It's designed that way. So when we start cutting people's organs out, or when we start removing things from the body, when we start losing the proper nutrients, you're not getting the right sensory receptors, you're not getting the right sensory system, sensory input into your brain. Okay? And now we know that up here in the MRI on a brain scan, so here's your brain up here, and there's 26 bones, right, that are encased in the armor of bone all the way down to your coccyx, right? And then there's a disc in between, there's a vertebrae in between, there's a vertebrae and a disc in between that acts as a pad for the nerve to come out. Okay? Now, depending on where in the spine it is, we find that a lot of times that there's some issues that start to occur. So people who a lot of the times have different problems with menstrual dysfunction, the nerves that go to your uterus are coming out of your low back. The ones that are in your thyroid gland here are coming out of your brain stem, right? So they're coming out of your neck. Your brain stem, these nerves are coming to your eyes, to your mucous membranes in your nose and your throat, your ears, right? A lot of these kids have ear infections that come in, and they've got highly subluxated atlases. So if we move this top bone, clear the pathway where all those muscles that need to drain the ear are, a lot of the times things happen pretty cool when they don't need the tubes in their ear anymore. Okay? But a lot of this stuff, again, heart, lungs here in the mid-back. What do we do as a society, right? I'm going to show you a slide here, but we're hunched over like this all day, putting pressure right here. Heart disease, lung disease is huge, right? So when there's pressure on the system, your brain can't tell your body what's going on, nor can your body tell your brain what's going on. So where do these subluxations come from? Most Americans have been in at least one car accident in their lifetime. Definitely, this is what happened to me. I was playing basketball though, I took an elbow to the back of the head, and then I ran into a wall one time on accident. I was probably subluxated before I ran into the wall. But then also here, this is what kids do nowadays, right? They're playing video games, they're just watching TV, being, stagnant and not moving. The lack of movement causes degeneration. And then this is the big one that I think most of you probably do. Sit at a desk all day, right? When you sit at a desk all day with this forward head posture, you're increasing the pressure, not only structural pressure on all the structures here in your neck, but you're putting a lot of pressure on your brainstem, and your neck nerves just are not getting the right movement flow. They're not sensing where it is in space properly. Okay? So we have to make sure that we remove these. Again, this is kind of a good illustration. Your spine should be nice and curved and straight, but when we start to lean it forwards, it tensions. It's almost like you're pulling a rope, right? And everything in between is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So there's a lot of times when people have neck pain, they come in with neck pain, but their low back is really the problem. Or the vice versa. If they come in with low back pain, a lot of times their neck is so far forwards, it's pulling everything up. Okay? So again, that's why we look at the whole spine and we make sure that we address it as such. And again, here at our office, I don't like guessing. So if you go to the joint, if you go to some of these other chiropractors, nothing against them, but just if you're not if we don't test for you, if we don't test anything, how do we know that we're really making any change? Okay. Besides the way you feel is great. I need to make sure that you're feeling better, but I really want to make sure that we're making significant change to your nervous system that's measurable. All right. So we measure a lot of different things here. I got a cool little stress test that we do that kind of tells me if your body, how your autonomic nervous system is functioning, and if it's functioning optimally or not, and if you're more dominant on the fight or flight side or the rest and digest side. Right. So ideally, you'd be here in the center. Most people kind of end up somewhere over here on the stress side. Okay, so we want to make sure things are driving back towards the center. Okay, we would take X-rays here in our office because I need to evaluate this degenerative process in your neck to make sure that things are actually going backwards the way they are, or the way they're supposed to. Excuse me. But we need to prevent this degeneration. Normally, your spine's supposed to be arched backwards. First thing is you start to lose the curve. You lose the curve long enough, and now your body starts to fuse those bones together. Right? That becomes a huge problem. It gets real stiff, real painful. Those nerve openings that are supposed to be nice and big start to get real small. When that disc also starts to bulge out and put pressure on the nerves, now you have radiculopathy. A lot of people have carpal tunnel syndrome, different types of pain, numbness, tingling in the arm, leg weakness, and surgery is the ultimate thing. Right? And these are the people that always tell me, well, I don't believe in chiropractic, but you do believe in getting a big old... Have you guys seen videos of back surgeries?
Yeah.
They literally have a freaking sledgehammer and they're hammering these pins and screws into your body, right? So you believe in that, but like you won't believe, you don't think that a little adjustment to your bones in the long run will make a big difference. Okay, we want to make sure we're preventative now, so that you avoid having these big pins and screws in. Because what happens is once you get this, now this vertebrae becomes the next one, and you bet that this is the next vertebrae that they're going to want to do surgery on. And then when they fuse that together, that's going to be the next one, and then hopefully you're still, moving by then, right? You're not in a wheelchair, okay? Because this back surgery is not very effective. It can be for certain people. Some people really need it because their spine's completely unstable and it's moving way too much, right? So when we fuse it down, this can be a huge issue for some people sometimes, okay? But again, best time to start chiropractic care is at birth. The second best time is now. So anybody who needs care, I would love to be able to give it to you. It'd be my honor to serve you guys. Because you guys sat through my long little lecture tonight, this is my gift to you. For $30 tonight, it's going to include your first consultation, a full spinal exam, your heart rate variability stress test. If we need to do x-rays, which most of you guys we will, we'll do those. And then it also includes the second visit when you come back, and we'll sit down and go over your treatment plan and all the things that you need to do to try to make yourself better. And then also make sure that we get you adjusted as well, okay? And this is good for any of your family members, if you have spouses, coworkers, anybody in the room that's not in the room today that you feel like would really benefit from this care or from this information that we're providing for you guys. It'd be my honor to serve you. So this is kind of, also follow me on Instagram. I have a lot of cool stuff that I'm putting on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm starting to put out. This workshop will be on the YouTube channel as long as I get the file from the tech people. And we'll make sure that you guys can watch it as many times as you want, and we'll try to share it with a lot of people, okay? So if you're interested, go see Adam and Julie in the front. I think actually it's Julie. So Julie will be in the front getting these coupons. The products are also for sale at the front. If you have any questions specifically about the products, I'm doing paid consultations for the products now. So if you have any questions about specifically what products to use for what reasons and things, schedule a consultation with Julie at the front. I do those during the normal office hours, okay? So I'd love to consult anybody on some of the issues they have going on. I'd love to give you some CBD stuff. You can always use the CBD on your own accord. It's really, really, really great stuff. You pay a little extra for it because we do a lot of purification testing on it. We make sure that there's no pesticides, herbicides, there's no heavy metals or anything like that in our products. Okay, so a lot of science behind it. We need to just make sure that people are getting what they need to supplement their systems. And ultimately, like ending with this is what I have. This is my gift to give you. Chiropractic is a beautiful thing because I can take my hands anywhere. Like I was at Vanguard backstage. I just set my table up in the little area, and we did 40 people. I was in the dance studio. We just did 60 kids in a warehouse. And all I needed was my table. People go to missions in Haiti, all over the world. Doctors have to take pills, potions, their surgical gloves and stuff. All I need is my hands. So it's a really, really cool thing. I got one person in here that I know is going to go be a chiropractor, and she's going to kill it in practice one day. But I'm like huge on making sure that if you're interested in this stuff, more than just getting care for yourself, I need an army. Dr. Bill is building an army. We need people to serve more people and to get this information out. So if you guys are interested in chiropractic school or anything like that, I would love to be the guy to send you to a good school. All right.
What does it say?
It says your greatness is what you have. Is not what you have, but what you have to give. Yeah. So, just Pooh and Mickey. But yeah, so if you guys are interested, go ahead and go to the front and get the coupon. But otherwise, I'm done. Thank you guys for having me. And again, some of the products are up here at the front. We have a whole display case in the front office with all the stuff. If you need to buy the products, I'm happy to get you some of those. We do. For some of you guys that have already been here before, we got a new salve, so the new lotion. I like it we switched to this.
It smells
version
really
of it.
good.
Yeah, we switched to this version of it because I like it way better, and I've had patients tell me it works way better. Inflammation, topical joint disease, anything that you got, that stuff is gold. Okay, so that would probably be my most highly recommended product. It's pretty affordable, so definitely go on with that. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.